Hello everybody, what's going on? This is the Twins of Destruction back with another video. Today I'm going to be making a baby Groot made out of Avafoam. And to start off this project I made these templates out of just regular paper, one each for the arm and leg, one body, and one head. Then the hand is just, you can use it as a template, but actually ended up just using craft foam strips, but I'll show you that later on. Use one leg and one arm because you can simply just use the same template for the other side. And you're going to be cutting out various numbers of each template. I will go over that once we get to the transferring. I'm just using regular Avafoam for this. Okay, so to create this Groot, you're going to need some layers for each of the body parts. To make the head, you're going to need 3 layers of Avafoam. The body will need 3. Each arm, leg will be 2 layers. So I'm just drawing them out here. You can make them all any size you want depending on the thickness of the foam you're using. But this is just what I figured out would work. And that is actually what I'm just going to do. I'm just using scrap Avafoam because this is actually kind of tiny. This Groot, so it just worked out with the scrap I had. Here I'm numbering them so I can remember which layer they belong on. And they are finally cut out. So I have 2 layers for the legs, 2 layers for the arms, 3 for the body, and 3 for the head. I'm going to now glue these together. And if your edges are a little rough, don't worry, it's fine. You can just sand them with a Dremel or sandpaper. Like those edges might not exactly meet up perfectly, but that is a-okay because in the end we're going to round them off and make them look real pretty. So as of now, you're in the clear. We're just going to use normal hot glue for this. You could use barge contact cement, DAP Wellwood contact cement. I wouldn't use white glue. You could use super glue or any other contact adhesive. Once they are finally glued together, I am going to be sanding them to make them round and more flush on the edges. I'm actually going to be using this grinding wheel that I have. If you don't have a grinding wheel, like I mentioned earlier, you can use sandpaper or a Dremel or even some kind of file if you have one that might work on Avafoam. And now Groot is starting to take shape. Each of the parts are rounded off to look more organic, and the bottom of the legs actually have indents into them to make them look like tree stumps, and the top of the head is all roughed up to make it look like the top of a tree. I'm now going to be making the sockets for the arms. Not really sockets, but I'm going to be sanding down the edges so they are flush to the shoulders, and then for the base around his waist, I'm going to be making sockets for the legs to fit in. The stance he's going to be is sitting. You can make him standing on one leg, dancing, or sitting like I'm going to do, but I wanted to keep it simple, and like the shapes that I created him out of, the stance will be simple as well. Now these are the sockets that I was talking about for the legs, and what they would look like. I just used my Dremel and just slowly dug into where his hips go. And this is how they rest. Obviously I'm going to be using hot glue, but the socket helps. This is the final product once everything is all glued together. The shoulders are shaved down, the legs have the sockets, the head is glued on, and everything is really starting to take shape. There's only a couple more things to do, which would be add the face, add the line details, add the hands, and then actually start filling the cracks and painting. So what I'm going to be doing now is using some of this red craft foam. You can use whatever you would like. Honestly, I should have used black just for it to blend better, but that is no big deal. But I used this red craft foam, and I'm making little tiny strips just right off the end of it, and those are going to be little tiny fingers. You just cut 10 of them, 10 little strips, make them pretty much the size of how your hand would be related to its fingers, and then you can slowly glue them on like a hand would look onto the edge right there. This is the face that I made using the same craft foam for the fingers. The face I'm going for is the scene in Guardians 2 whenever Rocket told him not to push the button in the end scene. And he's kind of like, oh. So I thought that was the best for him when he's sitting there. And then his fingers are kind of looking good there. The next thing to do would be is to add the bark lines on him, which would just be taking an X-Acto knife and just carving into him. And then using a heat gun to make those lines pop. I kind of stopped recording after I did that, but the next step would be is to add a layer of Mod Podge or Plasti Dip and then a layer of paint of your choice. I used a basic brown, just simple brown, and just covered him in everything. This is actually a previous project I had done before. The one seen in this video was not the one in this end picture here, so that's why there's moss on his head and a flower on his shoulder. You can add those little details if you'd like, or don't. But either way, this Groot was really fun to make, and I really enjoyed